If you're thinking about moving to Colorado Springs or Colorado in general, you may be pretty excited, but there are some major cons and things that people don't tell you when you're moving to the area that should really be discussed. And no, it's not that it's dry and cold, we all know that. My name is Ben, and in this channel we make videos about what it's like to live and move to the Colorado Springs area. Also, we are a team of realtors in the area and would love to earn your business. So if you're getting any value out of these videos, feel free to subscribe, or even better, we'd love to hear from you. Feel free to comment or reach out to us with anything that you need. So in this video, I really want to break down having grown up in the area and moved away for a while and having come back. Really some of the points and things that people don't really think about when they're moving to Colorado, some of the really unexpected cons that you might not expect at first glance. So these are some of the less thought of cons of the area. The first thing that really stood out to me when moving back to the area that I didn't really even think of growing up is honestly just the lack of vibrance. You know, you have signs, colorful Colorado. I mean, no. I mean, to be honest, you have 12 different shades of brown. And yeah, you have pine trees or evergreen trees, but aside from green and brown, there just really isn't much variation in the landscape. So yeah, you have the mountains, they're great, they're beautiful, but past the mountains, once you kind of get a little further east, there's not much. So if you're moving from an area that it's maybe a little more coastal, either Florida, parts of California, you may be used to, tons of vegetation, and in general, Colorado Springs is pretty brown. There's spots, obviously, and, in the mountains, you may hear of, people going to check out the aspens and the changing colors. You have a couple set weeks during the fall that are really pretty, but in general, for those colors to really even happen, you're going to need a really rainy summer. And that did happen this last year, but in general, this is one of the biggest things I noticed when moving back to the area. It's just the lack of vibrance. The second biggest con to the area that's a little bit less talked about is just the cultural diversity. So Colorado Springs, pretty white, and moving from a bigger city, you definitely feel this. So growing up in the area, it was even more so, and there's quite a few shifts where it's trending to be more culturally diverse, but compared to a lot of major cities, it's still pretty lacking. So to kind of give you a scope of things and how it is kind of changing, in 2020 it was about 80% white, and in 2023 it's about 71. So people are starting to move to the area, but that definitely is a potential major con. So we had a client recently, Mark, who moved from California to Colorado, initially to Denver and then to Colorado Springs. And the cultural diversity was one of the biggest things that he noticed just moving from a bigger city that kind of felt a little bit lacking to him. So the third major con in living in Colorado is just the water shortages. So as you probably know, Colorado is pretty dry, being at high elevation, and with this you have kind of spouts of drought. So I remember growing up and quite often there was water shortages that restricted watering lawns and stuff like that. I mean, that's pretty much the biggest one, but in general, there's quite a few concerns about just as the area grows, the potential water shortages, and they are working to solve this, but just the arid climate, it makes it really hard for cities to develop to a certain size until we really come up with some good options. Looking at water levels now, they're pretty decent just because of the rainy summer that we had this past summer, but in general, Colorado is really going to have to come up with some good solutions to just the potential water shortages in the future. And kind of an interesting point that I don't think probably many people realize, that collecting water, like rainwater, in Colorado is actually illegal. You're not allowed to do it, which, having moved from Florida to Colorado, it just seems so bizarre to me, but yeah. And then when you are buying property too, the water rights are actually sold separately. So do know that if you're looking to buy a house. The third major thing that people don't realize when they're moving to the area is the higher UV exposure. Now, when you go skiing or you're in the mountains, you may think, no need to put sunscreen on, it's cold, why would you need to do that? But the frequency that people get sunburns when they're new to the area is like super high. I remember having friends growing up who had moved to the area recently and like major second-degree sunburns, and you know, so definitely need to put on a lot of sunscreen if you're going to go up in the mountains, if it's a sunny day. Just with higher elevation, you're naturally going to have, you know, quite a bit more UV exposure. The fifth major con for people who are thinking about moving to Colorado Springs to save money for housing, if you're commuting to Denver. So say you're working in Denver, but you want to live in Colorado Springs so that you can kind of save some money there and you're willing to commute. Well, during rush hour, that commute from Colorado Springs to Denver can be upwards of 2 hours. So, I mean, potentially 4 hours a day of commuting. Now, if you are commuting during like non-rush hour times, this isn't such a big deal. It's only about an hour and 15 minutes. But do know that when you're looking on Google Maps, you gotta set the settings for, you know, rush hour. So 2 hours one way can get pretty tedious. So do know that if you're thinking about working in Denver and living in Colorado Springs to save some money. Now, they did just fix and finish adding a lane to the highway route that goes from I-25 from Colorado Springs to Denver. So it is much better now. It's not quite as bad of a commute, but do know it can be upwards of 2 hours. So the next major con is the weather, but it's not necessarily just the overall weather. It's specifically the wind and the hail. One of the most common unexpected things to know is just the sheer amount of hail. And this is the case because with the high elevation, there's simply less time for the hail when it's falling down to melt and turn into rain. So know that hail is super common. I remember my wife telling me when we first started dating a story about her dad taking her car to work in downtown Colorado Springs, and she had a soft top Miata, and the Miata the soft top just got completely destroyed. So know that you do have to be a little bit careful with hail, especially with cars. And then the further out east, to touch on the wind, in like the Peyton Falcon area, the wind speeds can be like utterly insane. We were renovating an RV a couple of years ago in the Peyton area, and I remember changing the roof on the RV, and let's just say I will never do that again. So right now I'm sitting in the RV amongst chaos as a giant tarp that we sadly put on the roof is being taken by the wind, and I'm waiting for help right now. Absolutely insane. It was not a good idea. It literally took our anchors off, a couple 100-pound tires, and smashed the windows. So that's mistake number one. That's no good. So now I'm just waiting for help. And coming in next, you have the con of potholes. So Colorado as a state ranks about the 12th worst state for potholes, and Colorado Springs specifically ranks about the 20th worst city. So obviously this is probably due to the weather and the cracking in the roads, but it's probably also due to just government policy. So they did develop some programs. There's like the 2C initiative to kind of fix some of these issues, but having moved back from Tampa to Colorado Springs again, I still noticed tons of potholes and things that really need to be fixed. So they did extend that 2C initiative into, I believe, 2024 or 2025. So hopefully by then it's a little bit better, but do know the potholes you really have to be careful of. So those are my major cons in having moved back to the area and having grown up in Colorado Springs, and this is both for just mainly Colorado Springs and Denver, but Colorado as a whole. So if you're still considering moving to Colorado Springs or Colorado after this video, we'd love to hear from you. Feel free to subscribe for more content so you can kind of know, where are the best places to live in the area, and let me know your thoughts. I want to hear what you think are the major cons about living in Colorado. And if there are any topics that you really want us to cover, we'd love to hear that as well so that we can give you as much value as possible.